Trip a UK domestic and it's rather potential you'll discover a box of Yorkshire tea in the cuisine sideboard. Following all, the tea mark is the nationality's other favorite following PG tips, in more than rather than 5.5 trillion tea bags manufactured in 2018. Recent year its increasing tea turnover were taking into account a increase by several top Yorkshire celebrities, and personality professed fans of the mark, who emerging in its newest advertisement campaigning. They turned on Sir Michael Parkinson, Indie Gang the Emperor Chiefs and Olympic medal winner triathletes the Brownlee brothers. So why is Yorkshire tea so favorite? Since it tastes so nice, says Leslie Savage, armchair of Betty's and Taylor's of Harrogate, the household industry over the mark. We include a extremely devoted crew who flavor thousands of teas each day to provide how we ever include the top quality assurance. Our blends as well get in review the kind of water supply how will be utilized to cook them at household. Yorkshire tea is perhaps the team's top named food, but it as well owns the coffee and tea trader Taylor's of Harrogate and the top-end coffee house circuit Betty's. Yorkshire tea is as well a comparatively new portion of the company, possessing been startup in 1970, and the team's origins in fact day behind as far as 1919 while the at first Betty's coffee shop outdoor in Harrogate, Yorkshire. It was set up by Switzerland émigré Frederick Belmont, who came to England to future his career possessing perfected his handicraft at bakeries and confectioners through Switzerland and France. Myth has it he just ended up in Yorkshire by crash, says Mrs. Savage, whose man Jonathan is Mr. Belmont's large nephew and Betty's and Taylor's ex-lug. On his arrive in London Frederick implemented he'd lose the address of his purpose, and all he could recall was how the location he was header for voiced love bratwurst, a kind of Deutsche Wurst. So a bystander put him on the boat train to Bradford. Betty's, that special in top quality assurance cakes in a silvery facility, rapidly became a hit and has with outdoor 5 more than historically themed tea rooms, all in Yorkshire. It as well rest its own culinary high school and on the internet talent store. The industry got future in tea in 1962 while it purchased Taylor's of Harrogate, a tea and coffee trader whose means are present sold out in supermarkets through the UK and across the sea. Mrs. Savage begun work portion time at her man's household industry in the deceased 1960s, time learning to be a lawyer, and united complete period in 1979. It was my ideally job very, she says, or my legislative skills rotated out to be rather helpful. Her at first formal part was as exportable officer, in one of her one tasks creature to evolve a band of harvest cakes to sail across the sea. Since I favorite bake and kitchen, I advanced the recipes and I intended the tins. Later I had to go and sail them overseas. In 1996 Jonathan Savage became head execution and armchair of Betty's and Taylor's of Harrogate, take the reins of his dad Victor. Jonathan's at first go was to streamline the industry that he felt had be too various. We were making external public catering, bake, manufacturing iced desserts for supermarkets. We were too fragmented and necessary to get behind to our mandrel, says Mrs. Savage. Mr. Savage as well solved to renew Betty's cafes, that by how spot had neglected their conventional decoration for a more than contemporary see and feel. They had lose how feeling of some time very specific, says Ms. Savage. So we begun to give behind the silvery teapots and pie stands, things how human beings see in Betty's present and believe include ever been about. Mr. Savage remained lug before 2011 while he retired and the business has withstood future changes, reorganization its executive board to provide how no one man has total force. While Jonathan was header up the industry, he was the main stockholder and a household term and he named the shots, explains Mrs. Savage, who became armchair in 2011. Very human beings were fair weight for Jonathan to do decisions that was well at the period. But one day he solved to move downward and other, mind, weird departure to requirement a civilization changing. Extraordinarily, head execution responsibilities are now share alike among 4 persons directors, though the industry is yet belonging by the Savage household. Turnover at the Harrogate-based team, that employs 1,400 personnel, go on to increase. In its largest latter accounts for 2017 it located rental income of £, up of £, the year up, time to tax profits jumped of £, to £16 meter. In spite its desirable productivity, Mrs. Savage says the company is not immunity of the challenges touching UK retailers. Consumer include been conducting less than on the top road and making more than of their trading on the internet, guideline to a reckless of retailers' departure bosom or declaring closures. Down there's not as lot human beings stray about on the top road, but later in our favor human beings are yet looking for experiences. So as length as they do go of, we can ensure an expertise various to everyone else's. The team's flagman mark, Yorkshire Chike, is as well making so but it could person risks. This mark's hard and consecutive invest in its advertisement is obviously bearing's harvest, says Amy Cost, a elder meal and sip analysis at Mintle. Yet love its comrade dark tea brands, the problem for the next will be in charming a junior demographics, that is less than potential rather than ordinary to sip dark tea and more than potential rather than ordinary to sip verdant, harvest or specialty chike. Looking front, Mrs. Savage says Betty's and Taylor's of Harrogate will hold focus on which it does top and just branches out if it very makes feeling. Yet, it has put several brand new, Switzerland-themed items on the Betty's menu, bar the year to commemorate its century and down there will be an anniversary date beat for personnel. We're already planner for the following 100 year, Mrs. Savage says. Frederick will be meeting possessing a cig and looking downward at us rather tenderly, thought we've made okay.